everyone, and welcome to the Business Day SME Clinic. Thank you all for joining us today. I am Ethel Adorno, and I'm delighted to be your moderator for this insightful conversation. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all our listeners for joining us in this insightful conversation. It is an honor to guide this conversation on a topic that is very, very important and that is very important to the success and sustainability of every small and medium-sized businesses. So today, our topic for today is budgeting, investing and funding for SMEs. And trust me, whether you're starting a business or you're trying to scale your operations, getting access to the right financial tools and knowledge is all that makes a difference. And that is what today's topic is exactly all about. So we are joined by a panel of brilliant speakers who are leaders, innovators, and also financial experts. And they are here to share their inspiring journeys with us and also to empower you with the knowledge you need to thrive and grow your business. So get comfortable, stay engaged, and also grab your pen and your jotter because this section promises to be both enlightening and also actionable. So moving on, I would like to introduce our brilliant speakers to you all. First up, we have Ella George, who is a business consultant and also a coach. She is an expert in helping small and mid-sized companies develop and execute strategies that fuel their business growth. She has a BSc in Management Information System and also an MBA with concentration in strategy and other certifications. She has worked in banking and consulting in both Nigeria and in the USA. Ella focuses most of her time and energy in helping CEOs and leaders and leadership teams build up more successful and sustainable businesses. She is a certified management consultant and the current managing partner of Hillbridge Consulting, and also she sits on the board of Adoson Microfinance Bank. Thank you, Ella, for joining us today. We can't wait to hear what you have for us. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. So our next speaker is David Lanre Mesan, who is often known as DLM. Thank you for joining us, David. David is a Nigerian entrepreneur, a venture builder, and startup advisor based in Lagos. He is the founder and CEO of First Funders, a venture studio focused on helping African tech startups develop ideas and investable businesses. David has a background in mass communication, entrepreneurship, marketing and venture capital, and he has studied at institutions like Lagos State Polytechnic, Harvard Business School, and Oxford University. His work centers on helping and supporting early-stage startups with ideation, fundraising, and growth strategies, aiming to build a robust African tech ecosystem. Thank you for joining us today, David. Okay, joining us also is Folajomi Adegbulugbe. I hope I got the name correct. Folajomi is an accomplished entrepreneur and business leader with a proven track record of building and scaling ventures across various industries. He co-founded Pristine Capital and launched successful startups like Joe's Indulge, Furnish It, and Gasify. He is currently leading the Hive Incubator in Akure, and he supports startups by providing mentorship and resources. With dual master's degree in international business and finance, he is currently pursuing an MBA at Imperial College London. Folajomi brings strategic insight and innovation and innovative thinking to business, investment, and mentorship. He is passionate about teaching and collaboration, and he is dedicated to helping others unlock their potentials and drive meaningful impact. Thank you so much for joining us, Folajomi.
Thank you, Ethel. I really appreciate
All right.
the introduction.
Thank you. So next in line, we have Olabode Oduniga, who is an investment professional with cognate experience in both local and foreign investment landscape. His expertise include global equities, exchange-traded funds, and fixed income securities and financial derivatives. He is currently an investment manager with Redwood Asset Management Limited. Thank you for joining us today, Olabode. We can't wait to have all you've got for us today. Also joining us again is Paul Uzoho, who is a seasoned financial services professional with extensive experience in business development, strategic planning, and relationship management. He is an associate chartered accountant focused in accounting from Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, and currently he is the head of SME business at Zedbas Finance Limited, with expertise in driving business growth, innovative financial solutions tailored to diverse market needs. He has garnered experience in cultivating strategic partnership and delivering data-driven insight, with focus on fostering financial inclusion and empowering businesses across Africa. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Paul. So I would like to thank our listeners and also thank our speakers for making our time to join us in today's SME Clinic. Thank you for joining us. So moving on, I would like to call on our first speaker to give us his presentation if you're ready. Falajimi, do you have any presentation for us today?
No, I don't have a presentation. I would go ahead and then, just talk about for, in the interim, on the topic. I think the topic is budgeting, investing. and funding for SMEs.
Yes.
Again, I think, the very popular saying is, businesses don't fail, because of their ideas. Businesses fail because of lack of money or funding, as they were. I would also add that, ideas don't often get to fruition or become businesses because of money or funding as well. And that's, what it is. It's a world where, money is really important, and money is not the most important, and money is not the only thing that sort of drives success in a business. But today, let's focus on sort of the topic. And I'll start with just like budgeting, and then I'll move into investing, and then I move into funding. I think it's a very nice, order to the topic, in terms of you need to budget first. Again, budgeting reminds me of that new year resolution. You need to put down something to say, this year, this is what I want to focus on. This year, I think I want to, hit the gym more often. I want to save, as much money as possible. And I think the first principle that stuck with me and was really impactful in my life in terms of resolutions was don't focus on just like the financial side. You want to focus on your physical, spiritual, your mental health as well when you're putting down a resolution. The same thing with a business when you're putting down a budget. You want to think about a business holistically, and you need to have some foresight. You want to think, forward a year, 2 years, whatever it is. But you need to break that down into something really small. When you start, you want to say, how much am I likely to make in a day? How much am I likely to make in a week? How much am I likely to make in a month? And then use that to sort of extrapolate, the numbers in terms of your income. Let me circle back a bit because I think I've moved ahead of myself a little bit. You need to first understand cash flow. And to understand cash flow, you need to understand that there is income and expense. There's no business that exists without the income and expense, even services. You spend something, whether it's salary for the owner, whether it's utilities, whatever it is, you need to have something that is going to be expenses. And if you think there's almost nothing, pay yourself some money through your business. You need to put some structures in place. Now, back to my conversation. Once you've written down your income, you don't want to write down your expenses as well. And that's what sort of forms, the broad aspect of your budget in terms of like the income and the expense. What I'll add to that is, while you budget, you need to think about all the resources you need. All the resources you need wouldn't just be about money. Some of it will also be about your time. How much time do you have invested? Because we find out a lot of people nowadays are doing multiple things. You're freelancing, you have a full-time job, you're running a business as well. How much time are you likely to dedicate to this thing? You need to budget that as well. If it looks like, yeah, this is going to be something I need to do full-time, you need to put some energy and time into it. If it seems like it's something that won't take as much of your time, you then need to also put that in place. I think that is really critical. Budgeting is really critical. I don't go into any business without first thinking. I mean, without thinking, without writing down, without potentially putting on an Excel to actually see what it looks like. And I play with numbers. Is it profitable for me to go into this? Does it make sense? And that's one of the things that I work with. When I work with SMEs and work with entrepreneurs, I let them know you need to have data, and it starts with your budget. It starts with your forecast. It starts with your financial planning. Not to spend so much time on just budgeting, let's move to investing. Investing then happens again, same thing. There's a need to almost focus solely on money, and I want to sort of like drift us away a little bit from this money. Investing is really critical. Like I said, if you budget your time at this point in time, all the resources you budgeted, you need to start investing it. You invest your time, you invest your money, you invest your resources, which could be your house, could be an office, could be whatever it is. There's so many things that over the times that you would invest in a business. If I'm to make this a little bit more interesting, I think when I did start running Joe's Pizza, because I did make pizza when I was much younger, when I was in university. I thought I was going to be a chef, and I needed to sort of invest time, and I was a student then, so I needed to invest time. I needed to also take a look at what those aspects would look like. And while doing that, one of the things that I did was to start making pizza from my house, because that was the easiest resource I could find. It was the place where I was living. It was the place where I had seemingly a kitchen already. It was the easiest way to then start the business. Going back to the mantra of sort of SMEs, you need to start with, tech world, you need to start with the minimum viable product. Also for SMEs, you need to start with the minimum available resources to ensure that you can then push the business forward. Like I did mention at the very beginning, ideas don't get started majorly because either money, resources, or whatever the case might be aren't there. So it's very important that you invest your time, invest your energy. The other thing that you want to do while you're in that investing phase is you want to ensure that every single you capture data, you have processes in place, you have systems, and potentially you're working with people. Why are systems, processes very important? There's no one you will talk to about your about your business at any point in time that you're asking for some funding that wouldn't ask you, how are you expected to get me a return? It's a transactional world in business. There's no one that goes into business thinking, you know what? You can go into some type of businesses, maybe, social businesses for impact and things like that, but almost all businesses want to make some type of profit. Profits, majorly money. I want to sort of get some returns, right? And then that takes me to funding. There are two types of, funds, as it were. There's equity and then there's loan. Broadly, in terms of every other thing that you're going to get in a business, you're either going to be providing interest to an investor, or you're going to be providing some equity, that is some ownership, to investors. And then, of course, there are nuances of different types of investing. For SMEs, I think the very easiest one is to just go to your friends and family, ask them for money based upon the idea, based upon the structure, based upon your budget and your plan. And then you start from there. You then move from there to potentially getting an angel investor, a VC, a rich uncle, anyone that can then take a look at that business again and, potentially see the future, potentially understand what the future looks like, and then give some money. And I think that's, super critical. The last part, just to ensure that, I wrap up my, mini speech, will be that in the current world that we are in, and in the current sort of economic climate, it's super important that businesses think of alternative ways to funding. It's very important that as well that you're out there talking about your business, you're talking about what you can do, especially when you're on a funding round. I'm saying funding round in terms of when you're actually now at that point when you're asking around for money. There's going to be definitely, amazing ways to go about it. And I know that there are very, niche alternative ways of funding, propping up nowadays in terms of, in Nigeria as it were. And it's going to be very important and very critical to sort of look through that, research, and go through that. Again, almost everything I've said can somehow, be mentioned, can somehow be gotten through AI. The last part I'll just say is use AI. Talk to AI. Let it give you some strategies in terms of your business. Let it structure things for you. I mean, I just needed to put that in. Lastly, I would say that you budget wisely. You invest intentionally. Since you invest intentionally, and lastly, you fund strategically. Not all money is good for you. Not all investors will be good for you. Again, it's a constant thing I'm facing in terms of misalignment between investor and investee or entrepreneur. Again, and I think that's where I'll end it. I hope I haven't taken too much time sort of giving us a introduction to funding, budgeting, and investing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for setting the tone for this conversation. And that was amazing. I was just, picturing a whole lot in my mind already. Thank you so much. So I would like to call on David. If you have a presentation for us, please. The floor is yours.
All right. So thank you very much. So I like to say that money is not the first thing your business needs, but discipline is what is needed when it comes to budgeting. And as it comes to budgeting, it's not just only about allocating numbers on a spreadsheet or to what you need for your business, but it's also about aligning your vision with your reality. You need to be able to understand what the vision is. You need to know exactly what your reality is, on the go. And then with that, you are able to determine what you have, what you need, and how you will bridge the gap between to be able to intention for the business. A lot of times, so many business treat money like it's the problem, when in fact the problem is usually how the plan to use it. Planning to use your money or your resources to be able to run your business is very fundamental to budgeting. And a good SME budget will answer certain questions like how much do you need to survive, how much you need to grow, what are your fixed or variable costs, what can you eliminate or automate within the business. Because at the end of the day, budgeting is also about trying to understand what you can automate to be able to, the needle within your business and all of that. And you should also think about what your return on investment will be on each of the costs that you incur or each of the budget that you allocate within the business. Because I often say that when you have resources, you should be thinking about how that resource moves the needle within the business. How does it translate into a measurable outcome? And this is something that requires a lot of discipline and planning, to be able to sort of reach out to that. And when it comes to investing in itself, you need to think like an investor before seeking one. And the truth is that you ask yourself, if you are to invest in your business, is your business a business that you yourself can put your money in? And for you to be able to get to that, we need to know that there are certain criteria that sort of play a fundamental role before investors can say they want to invest in your business. So which means that you have to be investor ready. And truthfully, there are various stratums to investment as it is. The beginning of investment begins with the customer. I often like to say that it begins with the customer. And the reason for that is because business that you're trying to solve, for the customer, and you're able to sell that problem to the customer, trust me, you will get money first into that business, even before offering that value, because you are creating a compelling solution to a problem that is truly creating a pain point for the customer. So I often say that, is there a clear problem being solved? You need to be very clear about the problem that you are solving. Oftentimes, SMEs try to solve, a heterogeneous problem, when they can actually niche that problem to a specific customer and understanding more specifically what the problem of that customer is. You need to be able to have a repeatable, scalable business model, when it comes to seeking investment, because these are things that investors will look at. Investors will look at clarity of the problem. What problem are you trying to solve more specifically, and for who are you solving that problem before they can put in the money? They will also think about a repeatable, scalable model, for the business. How are you going to generate money, and how do you intend to scale that business? It's very fundamental to, requesting or asking for, investment. And then again, the investors will think about the founder and how much the founder has contributed to the business. Have you taken your business from that minimum stage to a traction stage? You understand? Or what I say, the vision stage to traction stage. And oftentimes, people will say that, investors invest in traction, not the vision. You get it? So the truth is that when you get to that point, for you to be able to get investment, you need to be able to get to that point of traction. But truthfully, there are different levels at which you can raise money. Your customer, you can bootstrap your business, just like my other brother said. You can do family and friends. And of course, there are also grant opportunities that exist today simply because a lot of institutions and foundations and agencies are beginning to think about bridging the skill gap. In Africa, they feel that there is a level of readiness that businesses need to have. As such, they are giving a lot of grants across different areas. I know a platform called MSME Africa that focuses on just providing grant opportunities to, small businesses. So grants can also be a way that you can raise, money. And I honestly used to say, based on my experience, that don't go to a VC until you have gotten to the point that you want to scale. And getting to the point that you want to scale means that you have gotten to that point where your product has reached a product market fit. You've gotten to product market fit, which means that you have validated your business model, that the customer is repeatedly coming, for your solution. That is when you should now think that, okay, how can we move from 100 to 1,000? That is when you should be thinking of going to meet investors. And that period, will also have helped you to mastermind the essence of managing capital and also maintaining operational efficiency, because investment money coming from investors is to help you to scale the business, but basically masterminding capital efficiency and operational efficiency in itself. So, which means that you have to put your skin in a business. Investors want to invest in understanding your numbers, your customer acquisition costs. They want to look at your revenue, your retention structure, what are the margins, and truthfully, funding without structure only accelerates failure. So when you put all these structures together as a business, you become attractive. You become attractive to the investor. And truthfully, when you show that trajectory, that, hey, see, when I started this business with 10 naira, we've been able to generate 100 naira. We moved from 100 naira to 1,000 naira. Now we need money because we want to move from 1,000 to 100,000. That is why we're asking for the money. And when you show that trajectory, that journey in itself to investors, they become more interested because you become attractive to them and they can see a clear pathway, to that growth. So when it comes to funding, like I mentioned again, bootstrapping, grants, and competition sort of exist out there. So I'm just going to summarize this by saying that for you to budget, you need structure. For you to get investment, you need clarity of the problem and your business model for you to be able to get investment. And for you to be able to get funding, you need to be able to show that you want to grow your momentum. You have maintained a level of momentum that you want to sort of scale. And that way, you're able to get, funding. Finally, I would say that running a business as an entrepreneur sits mainly on discipline, because through discipline, you're able to determine the longevity of your business. I hope this makes sense in just this few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that brilliant presentation. It does make sense. Thank you so much. So I'll be going into the questions we have for the day, and I would like to ask Olabode. So let's start with the basics. So how can SMEs create a budget that truly aligns with their short and long-term business goals?
All right. Thank you very much for that question. So basically, when companies are making budgets, they want to carefully consider all of the important factors. For me, I'll say one, you want to look at your revenue streams, right? You want to be realistic when making the budget. You want to have revenue projections, and you want them to be as realistic as possible. Number two, you want to have all of your expense forecast as well, a budget for it. You're looking at the fixed cost, you're looking at variable cost, and at the same time you want to plan such that you want to minimize cost, because for one, cost is almost sure, you are sure to spend money, but in a business, when you are projecting income, there isn't certainty yet. You are just expecting it. And on the third side, while as a business you are going concern, you want to make sure your cost is minimal. You want to keep it to the barest minimum, realistically. And for the income, you want to also make realistic projections. A lot of businesses, we see them make, a lot of bullish projections. They are overly positive. Then thirdly, in a climate like Nigeria, there are a lot of uncertainties. You want to have scenario planning. What happens to inflation if you are planning to get to raise capital, maybe debt, borrow cash, loans? You want to look at what interest rate is, be realistic with it, right? What of inflation? What are the impacts on your costs? How will inflation impact your cost? You want to look at exchange rates. Your products, are they imported? Some of your inputs for your business, if they are imported, how will exchange rate fluctuations affect them? All in, you are able to plan, see your cash liquidity. Once you have this budget well, you can see your income clearly, you can see your expense clearly. You want to leave some reserves or for contingencies, emergencies, or fluctuations, or negative unforeseen circumstances. That way you can now make plans around it, whether in the short term or in the long term. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Olabode. And thank you for reminding us that as a business owner, you have to be realistic with yourself, with your setting your business goals and running your business. You just have to be realistic. So we'll move on to the next question, and I would like to ask Ella George. So what would you say are the core components every SME budget should include? Should I take that again?
Core components, yeah?
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So, first thing is when it comes to money related issues, from my experience, I see that a lot of business owners, especially the smaller businesses, tend to run from money matters. As long as there's money coming through the accounts, they think everything is good until certain events will then reveal that, look, money is coming in, but all is not necessarily well, or they get to a point where someone is willing to invest, but the math in the back end is just not mathing. And this is why it's really important that we have that type of budget. Another thing I'm going to say before I go into the components is that when it comes to issues related with budgets, investor preparation, raising funds, money matters in general. If it's not your thing, instead of ignoring it, get someone who can help. I've seen so many situations where people assume that it costs a lot more to work with, an accountant or an auditor than it actually does. So get comfortable bringing in professionals who can help so that this back end is tidy. I have a reason for starting with this. It is so much easier to ignore, and that's what I see. I've been working with small and medium-sized businesses for almost 11 years now, and I know that usually that part is usually a mess. So get comfortable, give yourself permission to have someone come in and help you with these things. That said, you must also have fundamental knowledge so that you can ask brilliant questions, and not take everything that you're given hook, line, and sinker. So whether you are creating it yourself or you have an accountant as a member of the staff who's helping, I think some of the key components, like Olabode mentioned, will be to have a revenue forecast. That is, one of the first places to start. What realistically is your sales projection for this period? You want to do 6 months, you want to do 12 months. What is it based on the market trends and based on your own history of what you did in the past year, how you've grown year on year? And then you also want to look at your costs, the ones that are fixed, the ones that are variable. Just a few days ago, our own accountant was querying me on our overhead costs. Like, why was it so high for 2024? I said, because the country is hard and we kept, we kept going. So yes, sometimes you might make that budget and not stick to it. I did not really stick to it because I guess out of compassion, I took up salaries, multiple times. But at the start, you need to have an idea of what the fixed costs are going to be, and then what the variable costs are going to be. Depending on your business, this would involve rent. You're looking at your raw materials or your imports, logistics. Companies are spending a lot on logistics. You also want to have, a component for that. What do you think it's going to be, and how might you get flexible over time? And then expenditures, especially the capital ones. So I I sit on a board of a microfinance bank, and I've seen how some of these expenditures really balloon out of control. You can make a budget in January, and by April, the prices are nothing like what you had initially planned. That said, you still have to think about the major expense heads. If the machinery involved, if there's some tech tools, subscriptions are no longer what they used to be. If the tech tools that you need to invest in, whatever type of infrastructure that you need for your business to run efficiently or to run smoothly, you need to plan for it and also have in mind the flexibility of exchange rates and all of that. Then, of course, cash flow projections. Now, there are businesses that are very cyclical in nature or seasonal. So when it's holiday periods, your sales balloons, and when schools are in session, everything tends to shrink. Or during Valentine's period, so every February, your income, just swells by 110%. And, sometime in April, everywhere is quiet. You need to project for that as well, so that you don't run into liquidity issues, so that you don't run into situations where you're unprepared for what's coming, whether it's planning ahead or responding to the situations on ground. So it's good that you also know how to month to month make plans for what's coming in, what's going out. And then we've had unfortunate situations with the security situation in the country, as well as some unfortunate incidences. We've had situations where people wake up one day and their building is burnt. This happened a couple years ago with a mall close to where I stay. What happens if you don't have contingencies, or if you don't have insurance? So there should be some type of emergency fund. Sometimes it's also to allow you respond to opportunities. A really good deal comes out for you to partner with a large event that's going to give you visibility to thousands of your ideal customers. But because there's no emergency fund, there's no contingency fund, you can take advantage of that. So it's also important ahead of time that you set aside some money for emergencies. This could be risks, this could be disruptions, right? You have goods that are coming in from Vietnam, from India, something happens, is seized, and then you don't have anything. So your goods stay there and business is basically grounded for a long time. So these are some of the components that I would say your budget should have, no matter how amateurish your your budget is. But as I said in the beginning, if you really are not an expert, really don't like numbers, don't like to think about it, have a professional coming to help you do that budget, because it helps you make better decisions for the short, mid, and long term. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ella. Thank you. That was amazing. And I think you spoke a lot about cash flow projection and also managing your expenditures. So that will lead us to the next question, which is around cash flows and how businesses can manage it. So I would like Mr. Paul to answer this question. So what are some effective ways SMEs can manage cash flow and maintain financial stability?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Good
This section has
afternoon.
really been very enlightening. And I would like to start by stating that cash flow is actually the lifeblood of every business. And knowing how to manage your cash flow goes a long way to keep and grow one's business. As we all know, businesses are considered as legal entity, meaning that every business today in the eyes of the law are seen as an individual, different from the owner of the business or the promoter of the business. So in the eyes of the law, a business is considered as a human being, completely different from the owner, the person who established the business. And if you see business in that light, and you will appreciate why I say that cash flow is the lifeblood of every business, just like the blood in our system is the life of every human being. Cash flow is the lifeblood of every business. And being able to know how to manage and grow cash flow is very, very, very important to the success of every business. And the mistake most SME do today is that they find it very difficult to be able to separate between a productive expenses and a non-productive expenses. And what I mean by a productive expenses and a non-productive expenses is that there are expenses that contribute directly to the growth and the growth of the business. And there are some expenses, even though they are necessary, they do not contribute directly to the growth of every business. Every SME business owner must be able to differentiate between these two types of expenses. But unfortunately, today, most SME owners find it very difficult to understand the difference between these two. For example, marketing, sales is a productive expense. These are expenses that are necessary for you to be able to grow your business. Now, even though it's an expenses that when you incur, you may not see an immediate result. But for the business to be able to survive and grow, we all know that you need to you need to invest in marketing, you need to invest in sales. So an SME business owner who feels, I just want to reserve cash, I don't want to spend too much cash, I don't want to waste too much cash, and see marketing, for example, advertising, marketing, sales as unnecessary expenses, such SME business owner is setting himself up for failure. So it is very, very important to be able to separate between these two types of expenses. Another thing again that every SME business owner must pay attention to is the fact that you must learn to invest, or let me put it this way, you must learn to pay to invest back into the business. Remember, cash flow is the lifeblood of every business. So if we do not pay attention to the level of reinvestment we do into the business, we reinvest back into the business, the SME business owner is just killing the business. I once have a customer in Alaba, for example. Let me just use this as an example. This guy is into sales of a refurbished TV, smart TV, and he's doing very, very well, very, very well. And 2 years ago, he decided to buy a land not far from his business place, and he invested so much in the building, his residential apartment. I mean, very nice place. But what I discovered was that after completing that project, the business starts to struggle. The business starts to struggle. Now, this is what I usually tell people, that, you see, as human being, you don't go to hospital every month to donate blood. You don't do that. I mean, if you try it, 6 months from now, is either they will declare declare the person dead, or they will just say, guy, you are very sick and you need blood infusion. But today we see a lot of SME business owner pulling out cash from the business for expenses that are not contributing to the growth of the business. They are more concerned about how they look, or the look of the office, how the office looks, and they are not so much concerned about the growth of the business. And that is why I started by saying that every SME business must pay very close attention to how they manage their cash flow, because if cash flow is not properly managed, it will reflect in the business itself. So that is why every SME business must pay very close attention to the way they manage their cash flow. And I always advise people, especially if you're a startup, that if you're a startup business owner and you have other activities you are doing, it's always advisable to ensure that you don't tamper with the cash, even though the new business is generating enough income. Try as much as possible to reinvest back 80% of whatever the business is generating back into the business. This is very, very important, because you see, you don't just give, and today you can't take a boy of 5 years old or 10 years old to the hospital that he wants to donate the blood. It's not, no hospital is going to allow that. So also, just pulling out money from business anyhow is like taking a child of 5 years or 10 years old to the hospital that you want him or her to donate blood. Today they say that 90% of every startup business fails after 5 years, and the 10% that survive fails. The 10% that survive after their 5 years, falls or close down the next 5 years. And the question is, why is it always like that? It all boils down to how SME business owner manage their cash flow. Most people have not been trained on how to manage their cash flow. So my point here is that as SME business owner, we must learn to pay attention to how our cash has been managed. And do you know why they call it cash flow? Is that you need to know where exactly the money is flowing into. Is it flowing into your business or outside your business? Any cash that is flowing into the business, such cash are considered as productive cash flow. And trust me, in the long term, the business will definitely grow. But any cash that flows outside the business, no matter what exactly you are using the money for, or what you think the money, about their expenses, the truth is that it's just like you are taking blood out of such a business. And trust me, within time, the business will definitely fold, because there will always be ups and downs in every business. There's always ups and downs. And when you find yourself in that down situation and you do not have enough cash flow to be able to sustain yourself during that period, the business will die. And at the end of the day, you start blaming the economy, that the reason why your business dies is because of this policy or that policy. Today, a lot of SME business owners are complaining. A lot of businesses are failing. Of course, I know that the business environment today is kind of very hard. But in the same hard business environment, some businesses are striving. Same type of business are thriving in this hard economic situation. Now the question is, how come the same bad economic situation, some businesses are striving while others are dying? It's because of the way SME business owner manage their cash flow. And the unfortunate thing is that you don't manage this cash flow during crisis. It's something you start to manage before crisis, so that by the time crisis hits, which is inevitable, it will be very easy for you to be able to weather the storm. But, it's just like insurance. You do not buy insurance when you need it. So also, you don't start managing your cash flow well when you find yourself in hard economic situation. It's something it has to be an habit that you inculcate into the business. And if you do that, no matter what the actual economic situation is, the business will always thrive. We've seen it again and again. Different startup business that have succeeded have become unicorn and big businesses. They all pass through the same process. So SME business owner must learn to take care of their cash flow. They must understand the importance of cash flow management in the growth of the business.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Paul. That was brilliant. Thank you for sharing your knowledge around cash flow and how small businesses can manage their cash flows and make sure that they don't run into liquidity. So that would lead us to the next thing, which is investing and return on investment. So over to you, Polajumi. So how can SMEs evaluate the return on investment before committing to a new project or initiative? Should I take that again?
No, I think I got it. Return on investment before taking on a new initiative.
Yeah.
Again, if anyone was following and remembers my budgeting 101, I think, when we talk about cash flow, where we say income and expense, return on investment is just basically how much more income am I making over my expenses, right? And that's, in the most simplistic manner that I can put it without going into any complex accounting or financial terms, is if I'm selling something at 200 naira and I'm going to spend 100 naira to make it, which includes my salary, includes cost of materials, includes utilities, offices, everything, as long as I've, taken account of all those things, and I'm able to then make a profit of 100 naira, my return of investment is going to be the percentage of that, which is, I believe, should be 100% of, the amount that you've invested in. And that's how you calculate it. Again, now heading into a little bit of finance, you want to ensure that your return on investment is more than, it's more than interest or it's more than inflation, and more than, a risk-free return. Inflation plus the risk-free return. Basically, what I'm saying is there's I forgot what they call it now. There's opportunity costs involved in, there's an opportunity cost involved in investing, right? If you're going to start selling something that's going to be generating you so little, you might be better off putting your money into a savings account that would give you some amount of money back in return. And of course, people will complain all the time that, banks don't give that much returns and things like that. And I'm very sure, microfinance banks have, a lot of, products that definitely should be giving you a return that will be closer to 20, 25%, 26% now, based upon sort of like the, economic landscape in Nigeria. And just based off on that, you want to make sure that whatever your business is generating is definitely more than 25%. And that's where, a lot of businesses start to struggle, because a lot of ideas at face value, excellent, beautiful. When you then drove down to the numbers, you start to see that, wait, after going through all this stress, I'm going to use my house, I'm going to have to cook, and there's no light, I'm going to have to use a generator. After everything's said and done, all I will make for the month is going to be 1%, 2%, 3%, after I pay myself salary. Sometimes, you have to take a look at the opportunity cost and say, maybe I invest my money somewhere else. And of course, this is not taking into account that there are so many reasons people invest: for impact, because it feels good to them, for spiritual reasons as well, if I may add. It might be a calling for them to just be investing in businesses or to do business. And there's so many other reasons why you might invest. But I think just, to ensure that, it's as short as possible, return on investment is just, you ensure that you're making way more than the expenses you're spending. You calculate it by taking account of, your income, and taking account of your expenses, and then doing a percentage of that. Again, there's the cost of goods that is used for making your materials, and then there's the operational expenses, which is every other thing. And it's very important to take account of those, nuances. I'll take the words of, I believe it was Ella, that says, if you can't do it yourself, look for a professional. There's potentially someone within your networking circle that understands this really well, and that would help you. I think return on investment is return on invested capital, return on investment, is, a convoluted conversation that could, potentially take a long time to then explain. But in my own little words, that's just it. Take a look at the income you're making, take a look at the expenses, be able to calculate how much it is, ensure that it is higher than, interest that you can get from risk-free, that is interest that you can get from somewhere that you don't even have to do anything. If you don't have to do anything to generate some income, you might as well just put that money in there and then ensure that, you're generating something really good for yourself. Thank you.
That was amazing. Thank you so much. And I would like Olabode to answer our next question, which is, how can small businesses balance immediate financial needs with their long-term investment goals?
All right. Thank you very much for that question. So without taking too much of our time, we've spoken a lot on budget planning and all of that. So it's easy. Say I have a budget now and I have looked at my income, maybe total income that I'm expecting is somewhere around maybe say 100 million, right? And my total expense, I'm looking at it at 80. That's giving me a bottom line of say 20 million. And for me, I've looked at my cash. My cash too is, somewhere around that 20 plus or minus 10 million. So I'm looking at the cash balance of say, anywhere from 10 to 30 million and 20 million profit. From there, if I'm making a I want to make some long-term investments. We've mentioned that for budget, you want to look at your top line, your income or revenue. You want to look at your expenses. You want to look at your cash flows. You want to plan for contingencies, things that you can't see or that you are not you don't know about. It could be inflation, exchange rate, or increase in costs. So when you look at that, what you have to pay your staff salaries, for instance, they are compulsory. You must pay them in the short term. You can't be owing salaries. If your workers leave, you can't do the business alone, right? So you need to look at your cash. Does it your cash, your going concern status, your profitability, does it support making these kind of long-term commitments? If it does, to what extent, how much can you spare? And you want to, make long-term investment in that line to drive the point home. Say I need to make an investment, say 200 million, but all I even have now in terms of cash is about 10 million. Then there is let's say 100 million investment and I have 10 million cash. There's a 90 million gap. So that 90 million is either I am borrowing to finance it, and if I'm borrowing to make that finance, I want to look at the returns on that investment and I want to compare it to the interest I'm paying near term. So sometimes as a business, if my profit is somewhere around 10 million and my interest is 10 million, I might sacrifice near term profit as long as my business can run, so that I can get that future benefit, because that's the benefit of investment. I'm making near term commitment for future benefits. But if the cost of the finance is something that would drag my business into loss, maybe I'll not be able to pay my suppliers, pay my staff, it will affect my operations, I may look at other investment sources, maybe to bring in new equity. Maybe I bring in new shareholders, or if I, as a business owner, have more cash, I can, inject more cash into the business so that I can make that investment. If not, I may want to suspend it to another time. Or another alternative is I may reduce the scale of that long-term investment from say 100 million to something I can afford in the near term. So basically that's how to look at budgets and short-term goals and long-term goals. Even if I have a long-term investment plan that would earn me a lot of money, to make that investment, if it would mean I won't survive short term, because if your business goes bankrupt, all those long-term investments, you may have to just sell them, at what's it even called, at distress, so that you can pay your creditors, and that wouldn't be right. You want to make long-term investment while you survive in the short term. So I think I've been able to make clarity on how to make such decisions. You make long-term investment, but you don't sacrifice your going concern in the near term, your short-term commitments. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that brilliant answer. Thank you. So we'll be moving on to managing risk and leveraging technology. So I would like Ella to answer the next question. So what are some best practices SMEs can adopt to manage risk and uncertainty?
Okay, thank you for that question. So best
Thank you.
practices to manage risks and uncertainties. Let me start with uncertainties. There's something I often say around planning, that we don't plan because we believe everything will go according to plan. We plan because we believe or we think that the process of planning allows us think through different scenarios so we're prepared for the future. That said, let me speak from some of the mistakes that I've seen, and I believe that we can fix in managing our risk. And you also mentioned, was it financial tools or tech tools? What did you say?
Tech tools.
Leveraging
Tech
what?
tool.
Tech tools. Good.
Yes.
Okay. So I have seen people. Let's even start from personal decisions before business decisions, because oftentimes the mindset of the person who's running the business would affect the decisions that they make for their business. And you have people who buy brand new cars in this country and don't even insure brand new cars because they claim that insurance companies basically don't do anything. So when you have someone who's making that kind of a personal decision, you can now imagine what's happening with the business. Controls are not in place because they have the mindset that everybody will come and steal. So as little as CCTV, as little as, auditors, quality control, you're speaking to yourself. So first of all, I think that there's a mindset we need to fix. If you're going to build a business that will grow and thrive, be either recognizable or is meant to make an impact, we need to get beyond some of the ways that we think. So first is, especially for product-based businesses, having some type of insurance in place. I think in the age that we're in, you shouldn't be speaking too much English for that. Okay? Yeah. Secondly, will be the refusal to put in controls, checks, balances, or tech tools that really simplify and show you what's going on in the back end. Again, oftentimes I see that people focus on sales and don't pay as much attention to back end operations. And this is why you see that companies that will sometimes blow up, maybe go viral, and it looks like a ton of money, and all of a sudden you're looking for them, like, where are they? What's going on? It's imploded because there were a lot of things in the back end that caused all of the cracks and weaknesses in their systems to be revealed. And this just goes way wrong. So there are tools that we can use. So first I mentioned insurance. Secondly, there are tools that we can use to put controls in place, whether it's around inventory management or around accounting or even around collection of funds. There's some businesses that you still don't expect to mostly collect cash, at least discourage cash collection so that you're not putting yourself at risk of having employees build duplexes while you're looking for money to pay salaries every month. By the way, this is true story. It is happening. There are also, lots of systems or processes that can be automated. I'm going to go back again to say, if all this sounds like Greek and is going over your head, instead of avoiding it, have conversations with people who know how to do these things. Have them, come spend a day in our office, in our store, in our warehouse. Look through things and tell us, how can we improve? How can we put this business in a situation that allows us to scale? I see people who have money sitting in the bank. People who don't want to but are going to invest in Dubai and the UK because they don't trust that they'll get their money back when they invest in Nigerian businesses. And on the flip side, you also see people who are looking for money to execute great ideas that they have. But you can't even speak to somebody and they give you money because they still see it as a one-man business, where if you don't turn on the account tap, nothing will. If you're not confirming every payment, if you're not, okay, let me not. Like, some of these things really hurt me, to be honest, because I don't know if you guys, fellow moderators or speakers, I don't know if you came across this publication sometime late last year that said, I think it was in The Economist, Africa has lots of businesses, but not enough business. Did you guys see that? Hi, it pained me. It pained me because really we have a ton of so small businesses, and when you speak to them, the idea is solid, the timing is right, but because of our failure to do things the right way, or the assumptions that we need to get to a certain point before we start doing these things, it just keeps us small. The business can't grow, not to talk of scaling. So in terms of managing risk, is really looking at where things are right now, assessing the current position, whether it's with your culture or with your processes or with the controls that are in place or with the products, what the margins are. There's so many areas that we can assess and investigate and audit to allow us to know truly where are we, and then what are the rooms for improvement, where can technology help. There are free tools, there are affordable tools, who do we need to help us get to that next level? What when you don't know the answers, find people there. In fact, there are even people who are willing to do this at little to no cost. There are people who can mentor you just because you ask. People love to be put in a position where they can help. But we're not asking because we assume it's expensive, we assume it's not necessary, we assume everybody out there is out to defraud us, and these are the reasons why we don't make decisions that are great for us. So I would say that assess where the business is right now to see where can you leverage tools like insurance to protect your business. Where can you outsource certain parts of your operations so as to reduce, for lack of a better word, nonsense? Where can you use the relationships that you have to also maybe get access to better credits? Someone mentioned microfinance banks and their rates. There's so many different schools of thoughts relating to that. We can get into it. Some believe that we're saviors, others believe that, well, they're just wolf in sheep's clothing. But if you have great relationships and allow yourself have conversations around where you need help and what you believe might be the next step for you, it opens you up to a lot of opportunities. It allows you to put into or bring into your business best practices as at 2025, because some of us are operating with things that worked for 2020 but are not valid anymore, right? I hope this wasn't all over the place, but these will be some of the key things for me. Look through your operations to see where there's room for technology to automate things. And even before bringing in technology, be sure that these systems or these processes have been that you've gotten them right manually, because tech will what's that word, magnify. Tech will magnify whatever issues or gaps exist. So know that you've gotten it right, that we've systemized things, that we have controls put in place so that people can focus on the outcomes and not necessarily how they can make the much that they can. But ultimately, I think it starts with a decision, to change your mindset, get out of your own biases and filters, and figure out, if I were to grow this business 3x, 5x, 10x over the next 2 years, what needs to change about me, about the way we run things, about the kind of decisions that we make. And I think that's how we can begin to bring on board best practices as well as tools that really can help us grow.
Thank you so much. That was amazing, Ella. Thank you for doing justice to the question, and also for urging us to ask questions at the right time and leverage technologies to excel your business operations. So that will lead us to the next thing, which is funding and getting access to funding. So I would like to ask Mr. Paul with the next question. What funding options are realistically available to SMEs today, and how can they tap into them? Mr. Paul, I think you are muted. Can you unmute and talk? Thank you.
Okay, so before I go into the question, responding to that question, I'd just like to add one more point on the earlier question you asked on returns, because I've noticed recently, especially when you listen to the last events that happened on the recent policy scheme that we had, that Nigeria lost over 1 point something trillion. And you'd like be asking that, so people have that kind of money, and yet we are hearing that there's no money in the economy, and the poor, there are a lot of poor in Nigeria, and yet people were losing over 1 point something trillion. And the reason is because we pay so much attention on returns. Like, everybody wants to, what will I get back in return? Everybody is concerned about the return of the return on investment, the return on investment. Someone once said that before you even start thinking of return on investment, you should ask of return of investment. Sorry. Return of investment is more important than return on investment. And the reason why I'm saying this is that the rich, whenever they are thinking of investing, the first thing they look at, they pay attention to, is not on return. The first thing they pay attention to is on control. And why do they rely so much on control? The reason is because control helps you to determine the outcome of every investment you want to invest in. If you don't have control, you see, you will depend on God, I beg, may this thing work out for me. And this is what kills a lot of SME business owners today. Because they have little or no control in what they are investing in, they just depend on God, I beg, may this thing work out for me. No, you can't succeed by depending on God, I beg, may this work out for me. No, if you don't have control, your chances of succeeding is very, very slim. Truth be told, yes, the reason why most people go into business is because they want to make money. They want to get something in return. But you see, getting something in return is very, very important. But if we lack control in the process of investing, then we are actually, giving out our hand-hard money just for free. So that it is very important for every SME owner to pay attention to control. And because without paying adequate attention to control, you realize that you're exposed to a lot of risks. But when you pay attention to control, you have it can go a long way to reduce risks. When you have control, you can influence the outcome. When you have control, you can be able to prioritize. If anything goes wrong, you'll be able to downside or to also drive the growth of the business. When you have control, you don't depend on someone, what will happen in order for you to be able to get your, to get your investment back. So paying attention to control for every SME business that is investing is very, very important. Now, let me go to the question you asked. What option funding is available to SME business? First, I would like to say that there are a lot of funding out there. There are a lot of funding. Someone says that there are trillions of dollars flying all over the place. Looking for whom? Looking for, a business to invest in. And that is truth. People believe that there's scarcity of money, there is no money. Trust me, there are a lot of people. The lady that just finished talking says something about people taking money out of the country to go and invest because they can't find businesses here in Nigeria to invest in. And it is true. There are a lot of people with money that they are looking for business to fund. But you see, what people don't pay attention to is this. The first question you need to ask yourself is, if I'm to invest in any business, what are the things I need to pay attention to? What are the things I need to see first before paying attention to, before investing in any business? Banks, there are things banks look out for before they can invest in you, before they can fund your business. And every SME business owner must find out what those things are. Before you start complaining that there are no money, you need to know, okay, this person that wants to invest in my business, people who want to invest in my business, what are they looking out for? First thing is that everyone that wants to invest in any business wants to see a track record, a proven track record. Meaning, if you have 1 million, let's say you start with 1 million, and in the last 2 years, you've been able to grow that one business from 1 million to 5 million, and you have a record, because one of the biggest challenges SME business owners face today is the fact that they don't keep record of their business transaction. Most of them don't even have bank accounts. Most of them don't keep their record of their daily sales. Most of them don't keep record of their purchases. And when you don't formalize your business, even though you are making money, people find it difficult to want to invest in your business. So banks find it difficult. For example, in Z banks, before you can access, we want to give loan to business. In fact, I'm sure every microfinance bank, they all have targets, and they all strive to, every month to want to make sure that they meet up with their target. But at the same time, you will see that most people come to approach them for money, and at the end of the day, they end up rejecting. In fact, the rejection rates in the banking sector, the rate at which banks reject is more than the approval rate. And the reason is because those businesses that they are rejecting the application, they don't meet the eligibility criteria. And unfortunately, they don't even care to improve on their business to meet those criteria that will qualify them for funding. So if you are looking for funding in the banking sector, ask yourself, what are the banks looking out for? If you are looking for funding in maybe family member, okay, your uncle, brother, sister, relative, what exactly do you think that person will want to see in your business before he or she will have that high level of confidence to be able to invest in your business? Remember, return of investment is more important than return on investment, because people want to be sure that if I put my money in this business, the money is going to come back to me. The principal will come back first before even the return. Because if the principal is not saved, who cares about the return? Because the return, to a certain extent, the return cannot be more than 100% of the principal. At least in most cases, return cannot be more than 100% of it. So investors are more investors, whether individual investors, whether angel investors, whatever kind of investors that wants to invest in any SME business, they are more concerned about the return of investment and not return on investment. So you need to know, every SME business owner must ask themselves this question: what are these people looking out for? If you find out what those people are looking out for, the banks, the investors, if you find out what they are looking out for, then go back and start working on yourself, on your business. Start formalizing your business. Start structuring your business to align with these requirements. Trust me, when you meet those requirements, money will flow into your business. It's automatic. Money will flow into your business. Who does not want to invest in good business? Everybody wants to invest in good business. Look at Elon Musk. He came up with an idea. No business plan. He said he wants to build, forgotten the name of one new company he wants to build. And investors were pouring money to him. No business plan, nothing, just an idea. Why? Because he has had a track record. And he knows that, investors have confidence in him. And because of that, money keeps pouring in him. We have a lot of business. We have a lot of formalized SME business owners here in Lagos that banks are begging them, "Oga, please come and take 200 million, come and take 100 million, come and take 50 million. And we have businesses the same size, because they are not formalized, because they are not well arranged. Banks are running away from them. Banks will say, we'll stop giving out loan. No. Who's told you that they've stopped? No bank stopped giving out any loan. Banks give, because that is their major source of income. So when you hear banks telling you that they've stopped us from giving out loan, it's no bank stop giving out, because their major source of income is from lending. It's because your business does not meet the eligibility criteria of the kind of business they can invest in, they can fund. That is why they come up with all those stories. Trust me, if you find out what those eligibility criteria are, and you work on your business to ensure that you meet those eligibility criteria, this funding will flow to your business. You will be the one saying, no, I don't want this. This is what I want. This is what will be good for my business. But if you don't meet those criteria, you will be forced to take short-term loan to finance long-term investment. And at the end of the day, you realize that your business is struggling, and you end up blaming Tinubu, and you end up blaming Nigeria economy. No, it is because your business is not well structured. That is why your business is suffering. It has nothing to do with the economy. So I think it's high time SME business owners start paying attention to how their business is being run. What is the best standard out there? How can I run my business in such a way that I will attract the best available funding, that will help my business to grow and strive? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Paul. That was fantastic. And I know going on, we could, take more questions because this is an interesting topic. But I beg to draw the curtain here because we have exhausted our time for this section. So thank you all for sharing your credible insight with us. And if there's one key takeaway for me, it is that leading a successful business goes beyond products or profits. It's all about being intentional, strategic, and resilient. And from budgeting wisely to securing the right funding, we hope that today's section has equipped you with the right tools to lead your business with clarity, confidence, while driving your purpose. So thank you all for joining. Thank you, our amazing speakers, for taking out your time to share your knowledge with us today. And to our amazing listeners, thank you for also joining. Thank you for staying tuned with us till this moment. And we would like to say thank you. Keep building, keep growing your business. Your business journey matters a lot. Thank you and do have an amazing day.